Welcome to 100 Proof Radio with Jay Wesley, your weekly journey into examining your spirit choices and social etiquette in different settings. Do you know the written and unspoken rules about ordering and consuming alcohol during a night out on the town with your friends, at office holiday parties, or when hosting at home? Well, pour your favorite drink and get ready for an unfiltered, enlightening, and comfortable ride. Sip back and relax. And welcome to 100 Proof Radio with Jay Wesley.
Welcome to 100 Proof with yours truly, Jay Wesley, and we would like to welcome you to our new home here at RollingOut Magazine. Today our discussion topic, cocktails and pastors. Does the congregation drive ministers to drink? We will host a lively conversation of why alcohol is often frowned upon or judged negatively by religious faiths and people of the church. We will lead a thought-provoking, healthy, mature, and fun conversation about the sociological and religious perspectives of drinking and being clergy or a member of the church. We will explore if the stresses of dealing with congregations can drive ministers to drink alcohol to assist them in relaxing, releasing, and unwinding. When being part of the spiritual community, the church often judges you for drinking. However, studies show that 85% of Americans are having at least one alcoholic drink a week, and I'm sure that includes pastors. We will also discuss many other issues that potentially may arise while drinking and being a leader of the faith community. What are the do's and don'ts of drinking in the religious world? When drinking and being part of the spiritual community, the church often judges you. And so we have our panelists here that I would like to introduce to explain to us, why do the church judge those that drink alcohol? So my first guest is here to my right is Wilbur T. Purvis III, pastor of Destiny World Church here in Austell, Georgia. How are you, sir?
I'm great, sir. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Pleasure. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, and thank you for being with us tonight. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
As you just stated, I'm pastor of Destiny World Church. Just celebrated about a month ago 25 years.
Congratulations.
As pastor. And so it's been a great ride, and excited about this conversation tonight.
So can the stress that a pastor is under, can it drive a reasonable person, the common person, to drink? Not a pastor, but can it drive the stress that a pastor deal with? Can it drive the most common, reasonable person to a drink?
Of course it can. It's a stressful job.
Absolutely.
It's physically exhausting. It's spiritually draining. It's stressful. It looks easy, but it's not.
Absolutely. I think sometimes bartenders have a similar role to the pastor, because just like people come to the church to have a seat in the pew, to get love, to get fed, people come to the bar to get knowledge and to share their stresses, to get fed something.
To have an ear sometimes. Yeah.
And so the bartender also have to wear that hat to listen to people's problems.
Like that, but I could see that.
Yeah, a lot of people come sit at the bar and drown out their misery there. So on the phone line, we have my good friend, Reverend Stephen Thurston, back in my hometown of Chicago, Illinois. And Stevie is the pastor of Salem Baptist Church of Chicago. How are you, sir?
Good, man. Glad to be on the show. Thank you to be amongst these distinguished guests that you have on the panel tonight.
So that includes Christian as well?
Yeah, we're going to let him slide tonight.
I felt the sarcasm in that. I really felt it.
Yeah, I felt the shade. So I had to, give him his credit. So, Stevie, what's your thoughts on this? Well, first tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Let me correct you before I get in trouble. I'm serving as the executive pastor now of the Salem Baptist Church of Chicago. However, I have pastored before, pastored New Covenant Baptist Church here in Chicago. Been in ministry for 20 years now. So I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and the real ugly. And to answer that question that you just posed, yes, sir, hell yes.
All
The
right.
stress level can drive preachers to do everything inclusive of drinking and even beyond. It's a monumental Herculean task, as Jasper Williams would say. Amazing amounts of stress, and sometimes you got to do something to relieve that stress. And sometimes drinking is the option that those of cloth will take to release some of that stress.
Absolutely. And we have one more guest here in the studio with us, Mr. Christian Smith. I call him the social media pastor because I'm always seeing him on social media preaching and doing podcasts from some everywhere. But before we introduce Christian, we're going to save him for after break. We're going to take a 1-minute sip, and we're going to introduce Nigel with Ooh Wee Liquor.
Hi, my name is Nigel. I'm the owner of Ooh Wee Premium Liqueurs. We are based right here in Atlanta. And our liqueurs are made with real fruit, spices, and of course rums. We're from the Caribbean. We have 2 flavors, guava pineapple, passion fruit. You can drink these straight, or you can make amazing, delicious cocktails. I'm going to show you one real quick. We're going to make a sangria. You always want to shake Ooh Wee. Simply pour it into a glass, the passion fruit Ooh Wee. You see some fruit is in there already. Instant sangria coming up. Wine on top, bam, sangria, instant sangria made with Ooh Wee. You could find this particular recipe and others on our website, ou-oui.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, Sip Ooh Wee. 150 stores all over Georgia. We just launched, and we would like you to sip and say Ooh Wee.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rick, and I am the founder of J.R. Revelry Bourbon Whiskey. It is an award-winning small batch 90 proof bourbon. This evening we will be making a simple cocktail, which is basically a bourbon and ginger. However, bourbon can be enjoyed neat, can be enjoyed on the rocks, or as I'm going to do, could be enjoyed with a simple mixer such as ginger ale, Coke, many other options out there. 9-ounce glass, typical rocks glass that you'll find. We'll pour about 1.5 ounces of the bourbon. It really just depends on how strong you want it. You can go up or you can go down. And then we will top that off with some ginger ale. Again, very nice, very simple, very easy cocktail to enjoy, especially now as we're leaving the spring and entering the summertime period. Cheers once again. To learn more about J.R. Revelry, please visit jrrevelry.com for a list of retail locations where you can purchase it in the Atlanta area.
All right, thank you, Nigel, for that good commercial. We're gonna taste it and see if the pastor's gonna drink with me. I don't know.
Instant sangria, less than 30 seconds.
And the pastors are having a sip as well.
All right.
So clearly, we now know the answer to the questions that pastors do drink. But the question is, why is it so secretive? Why do pastors have to be so secretive about letting people know that they drink?
I think church has created for a long time this secret society. We have made drinking taboo, and as a result of that, there are some pastors who feel like this is something that I got to hide because it may threaten my job, make people look at me in a different light. But the reality is there is no single verse in the Bible that I have read that says that a Christian cannot drink.
Interesting. And so, Christian, we didn't get a chance to do your introduction. Before you answer this question, why don't you tell us about yourself, who you are?
Sure. My title is Holistic Image Consultant.
Not the social media preacher?
Nah, not the social media pastor. I'm actually working on a real-life church plant, so we're going to actually meet in a physical location by the end of the year. But a holistic image consultant comes from the concept of image being defined as what we present externally to the world and then what we present internally to the divine. Because God looks at the heart, humanity looks at the outward appearance. So it's not just your clothing, but it's also your character. So I focus on fashion, faith, and fitness. I have a men's custom clothing firm, P Squared Custom Clothiers, based here in Atlanta. And we're planting a church called the Faith Community in Atlanta later this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
So what's your thoughts on this matter? Why do pastors have to be so secretive and act as if they do not drink?
I think Pastor Purvis hit the nail on the head. I think many of our churches are married to our doctrines. Like different churches and faith traditions create doctrines based on their emphasis and their personal interpretation of certain scriptures. So when they see a text that says be sober, they interpret that as don't drink. When that's not what the text says. If the text says that you should be sober, just because you have a sip doesn't mean that you're not sober. But people take it to the extreme, and then pastors allow people to project that shame on us, and then we internalize it and hide, and so It's just, it's just a snowball effect.
So Stevie, in the Bible it says in Proverbs 31:7, let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. So what's your thoughts on that scripture?
Let me steal the words of Christian Smith. Whenever you take a text out of its context, all one is left with is a con. And I think that it's important when looking at a biblical text to understand the context of the text, who the author was writing to, what the specific issues were. All of those things have to be taken into consideration. And so when you go previous to that particular text and read up to that text, you understand the background of who's talking, what the situation is. That text is not suggesting that one would get drunk. That text is suggesting that alcohol or wine could be used in a number of ways. Back in that historical context, we can look at Jesus on the cross. He was offered something to drink. That something to drink would numb him from the pain. And so you have that going on within that particular text. And it's suggesting that, one should be numbed from whatever one is going through. It's all right to have a drink to kind of like chill you out, relax you, cool you. But again, as Pastor Purvis said, there's no text that says you cannot have a drink at all, or you go into hell if you have a drink.
So, Reverend Purvis, we live in a nation now where people respect transparency. So do you feel that that pastors are not being transparent when they are keeping it a secret and potentially demonizing it from the pulpit? So what's your thoughts on demonizing it from the pulpit and the importance to be transparent in a transparent nation where we are now?
Honestly, I don't know. Maybe in former generations, my generation down, I don't know a lot of pastors who demonize it. And maybe the circles that I run in have something to do with that. I think there's a generation of preachers that are being raised now that are open to doing what we're doing now. Let's discuss it. Let's talk about it. Let's put it on the forefront. That way we can begin to take away this notion that it is taboo and it's sinful and it's something that we can't do. I think when pastors are open like that and transparent, the word that you use, it helps congregation to understand and see that this is not something I have to be ashamed of. This is not something that my pastor has to hide. It's a reality. It's something that God made, and it's okay.
So, Christian, as we speak about transparency, and you being, I think you're a millennial, and so you definitely believe in transparency. And so what are your thoughts as far as a pastor speaking about, let's just say himself, having a cocktail or a glass of wine or beer from the pulpit? Is that frowned upon, shamed upon? Would you recommend a preacher not do that? What's your thoughts on somebody speaking about themselves drinking alcohol from the pulpit?
I think that depends on your context. So my ministry is targeted to a certain demographic of people, which it would be totally all right to say stuff like that. If you've seen some of my Facebook Live conversations, I mean, we talk about pretty much anything. I'm very transparent. In certain traditions and certain settings, that would be frowned upon. So you have to know your audience. You have to know who you're dealing with. Because like I said, every faith tradition, denomination, church has their own doctrine. So if it is that church's doctrine that you're not supposed to drink, then you shouldn't get up in that pulpit talking about how you just had a drink, because that's not the order of that particular house. Absolutely. So you got to know where you are.
So, Reverend Thirsty, can you tell us your thoughts on if a pastor do speak about drinking from the pulpit, because I know that one that does it in Stone Mountain, huge congregation, won't mention any names, talk about drinking the Kettle One from the pulpit, is he less of a man of the fabric because he's speaking of alcohol from the pulpit? Does that make him less religious or less of the minister of the cloth?
Not at all. I think that it's our duty, it's our job to be honest, truthful, transparent. That's what people are looking for, real, raw, and relevant from their spiritual leader. If you got to hide little stuff, then what big stuff are you hiding? Would be my question if I was a congregant of my pastor. So I think it's fair game for us to discuss all things. The church is the place of truth. We should be able to talk about anything and everything and educate and inform and empower people from that pulpit, inclusive of alcohol, and what the Bible actually said concerning it.
Excellent point. So, Reverend Purvis, is this an issue that's only faced in the black community? Are white churches more open to inviting their pastor over to the home, drinking with them, and being less judgmental than black congregations?
I'm not really sure what happens in the white context. I think in our context, though, it's this tradition that keeps getting passed down and passed down and passed down. And what I found is not everything that is traditional in our context is truth. Just because it's tradition or been passed down several generations doesn't make it truth. So I believe it's our job as pastors, in particular in the black context, to make sure that we're exposing our congregations to what the word actually says. Not everything that is traditional is textual.
Right. And that's why I commend you guys for being part of the show. Many ministers chose not to be here. I think it's just a rough conversation. And that's one thing that 100 Proof is all about, is to make alcohol not so taboo, because there are studies that show that moderate alcohol consumption can improve your risk of cardiovascular disease. The School of Public Health at Harvard University found that moderate amounts of alcohol raises levels of high density or good cholesterol, which is associated with greater protection against heart disease. So it's a good thing that for people to be able to see that ministers are talking about it. So if they even are facing an addiction with it or suffering something where they can't manage it or do it moderately, that they can feel open to coming to their pastor to talk about it and not feel like they're going to be judged. So, Christian, we did a survey that said a close relative who reeks of alcohol wants to attend church with you for the very first time. How do you respond? And this is a Facebook poll that we did. 48% said the person needs to clean up first or they cannot go. 52% of the people said, I will take them to church, but we have to sit in the back. What's your thoughts on hearing these stats of a large percentage of people said they would not take a person to church who smells like alcohol when the Bible says you can come as you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think with that particular question, with those two options, people are just picking the best of what's available. There might be a number of variations of how people will respond to that. For me personally, I would want the person to clean up regardless of where I was taking them. It's not about church. If you come with me in public, I don't want you reeking of alcohol and being offensive to everybody around me. If we going to church, if we going to a restaurant, if we just going out to a festival, like, clean up. Like, that's personal hygiene. That's not spiritual.
So, Stevie, what's your thoughts on what Christian just said?
Yeah, we actually had that instance that happened at the church that I was pastoring. Had a gentleman there, and security, I found out, tried to escort him out. And as I stopped him to find out what the issue was, they said, well, he's been drinking, he smells of alcohol, we got to get him out of here. So as I asked some questions, I came to discover that gentleman came to our early service, our 7:30 a.m. service. He stayed for Sunday school, and then he was there at our second service at 11:30. My question to security was, have y'all been here at 7:30? Were y'all at Sunday school? Here we have a man he's now his third experience with us, and y'all trying to get him out of church. Apparently he's here because he needs some help. He needs some healing. And so I wanted him to stay. I made him come sit in the pulpit with me. You're my special guest today. You're at the place where you need to be today.
That's wonderful. But they was trying to put him out, Stevie, because at 11 a.m. at Salem is no joke. They needed that seat. So, Reverend Purvis, what's your thoughts? Could I go to your church if I'm leaving the club, which maybe I do, maybe I don't, and come straight to church and having some drinks? Can I come sit in Destiny's World Church in Austell, Georgia, reeking of alcohol, or am I going to be put out?
I would like to think that you'd be welcome. Our vision is loving God, connecting people, changing lives. One of the things I stress to our church at Destiny is the church is a hospital.
Yeah.
The church is a hospital. And you don't go to Grady or Piedmont and expect to see well people. When you go to Grady, you expect to see sick people, people who are ailing, people who are seeking health and wholeness. And I think that's the church's job as well. We cannot expect, when we show up at 8, 10:45, 7:30, whatever time the service is, to see well people. Pastor on down.
Interesting.
Pastor on down. All of us are looking for help.
So, Steve, we're going to come back to you with this poll question that we did, which says, is it okay for a pastor who has a full congregation to buy alcohol from the liquor store themselves? We had 87% of the people to respond to the poll say, Pastor, it's fine. Go ahead, do it. 13% say, Pastor, please do not be seen in the liquor store buying alcohol. What's your thoughts on this poll?
I'm with the majority on this piece. What do I have to hide for? It's nothing immoral. It's nothing illegal. Hey, if a member is in there and they see me purchasing something, what you doing here, Pastor? My response is going to be, what you doing here, member? The same thing you're doing, the same thing I'm doing.
Right.
We in here together. Let me get your tab. I got it covered for you.
Christian, what's your thoughts on this question, this poll?
The ditto. Exactly. What do you have to hide? If you once again internalize that shame that people project onto you, then you're just feeding into it. And I would imagine that those answers are probably separated by denominational ties. I would imagine. I don't know the actual statistics, but certain denominations have rules about alcohol. So if you got, like, I'm Baptist, so I would imagine most of the 80% were Baptists. Right. And then the 13% might have been, Pentecostal, because they have strict rules about drinking alcohol.
Right. So, Reverend Purvis, I'm switching it around for you a little bit. For those members that, let's just say they're buying alcohol from the grocery store, which you can nowadays, and the pastor come get behind them in line, should they feel ashamed and try to hide that liquor and put it back or sneak it out or get out of line, or they can just be themselves and go ahead and purchase the alcohol right in front of the pastor?
Not at all. I think they should be it's their money. I think they should be very comfortable with doing that.
So,
and by the same token, I think the pastor should be very comfortable doing the same. So I think we perpetuate it because of this whole notion, I got to hide. Once you take the covers off a thing, once you expose a thing, it's no longer juicy like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It becomes the new norm.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But for generations, we've hid and ducked and dodged and tried to act like we didn't do that. And that's why we're having this conversation tonight, because we've been doing that too long.
But will you go to church the next day and shame this? Because I have had this happen before, not necessarily to me, but my pastor. I won't say no names. If anyone know where I go to church. But he told the story that he was in the grocery store seeing someone buying alcohol and how much the alcohol cost, and made some inference that they need to be bringing that money into the church. So y'all know this is a true story. So, Stevie, what do you feel about that pastor making that comment?
It's cultural context. That's what we do. Hopefully he did it in a jokey manner, depending on his age and his background. I think that would have a part to play in the situation.
But Stevie, joking or not, that person could feel embarrassed and shameful for that statement being made in church.
Sure.
Because I felt embarrassed for them, because that could have easily been me.
Hey, just keep looking forward. Unless he called your name, just keep looking forward. Now, roll with the punches.
I think it depends on relationship too. Like if the pastor has a relationship with that particular person where he or she can make that joke and that person gets it,
Right.
then it's not so much an embarrassment. It's just banter between two people in a relationship.
Right. But I still feel some type of way about that comment because the whole money statement and you're watching my money in the comment. But even though it didn't happen to me, it was a true story. I saw it and I felt some type of way. But we're going to move on to the next one, as Stevie said. Keep it moving forward. So, Stevie, I'm sorry, Reverend Thurston.
Man, you're good.
Reverend Thurston, I know that you're single. At least I believe you still are. I don't know what you've done since you're going back to Chicago. Would you stop? Okay, you're still on the market. So this question is for you. Would you stop dating someone if they had to have an alcoholic drink before church and or Bible study? No one knew. Like, they carried themselves on as normal. They didn't smell it. They didn't act any different. But you knew that they had that sip before church or Bible study. Would you continue to date that person?
I'm cool. Have one for me.
All right.
Yeah, it's all good. There's no concern, no issue, no fault of someone, having that drink. Now, again, if they pushed it further and they were drunk, toe up, we got to have a conversation. We got to get you some help. But I think doing things in moderation, it's all good.
All right, to thank all of you for tuning in to 100 Proof Radio Show at our new home of RollingOut TV every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And be sure to follow us at Cocktail Chron #1. Cocktail Chron #1. Chron is short for Chronicles. We'll see you next week as we talk about cocktails and strippers. Is alcohol part of the process? See you next week. We are your leading source of beverage industry news. As always, we keep it 100 on 100 Proof.
You need to preach on that show too.